From the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing, this is World of Wonder's Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder, and joining me this week and every week, Tom Campbell, twisted mind behind RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes.
And I'm also joined by James St. James and eternal club kid of the Spotless Mind.
Thank you.
And our millennial producer, Blake.
Hi, guys.
So Thanksgiving is just around the corner. Yay. And I am grateful to you guys for continuing to join me.
I'm so thankful that you keep employing me.
Here in the basement of World of Wonder Productions on Hollywood Boulevard for another edition of the Wow Report. So every week, as our regular listener knows, we count down the top 10 things that make us go wow. But this week, it is the season. We are counting down the top 10 biggest turkeys of all times.
Movies.
Yes, we are giving thanks because these movies are, in our humble opinion, so bad they're good.
Yes.
So let's get plucking. Number 10.
Number 10.
I am going to put on the table this Thanksgiving as the number 10 turkey movie. So bad it's good. The Bodyguard, starring Kevin Costner and the one and only Whitney Houston. Now, let me start by saying I am a huge Whitney Houston fan. I love her with every
Surprise.
thing in my soul. And this was a huge hit, so it wasn't a box office flop. But if anyone really watches it again, it's a camp classic piece of trash you have to watch. And it's a time, it was made in 92, when Kevin Costner was a big star. Right. Remember that moment?
The biggest star in
that
the world.
Blip? And, and Whitney, I think it was her first movie. And the thing about it is, it's an actor-proof movie. Obviously, Kevin Costner can act.
What does that mean?
Like, nobody can screw it up.
Yes! And I think it was originally developed for Diana Ross or Barbara Streisand. She plays Rachel Marin, this pop superstar who's having this stalker come into her life. And so, ex-Secret Service agent Kevin Costner comes in, and they immediately, for no good reason, don't like each other. And she's gorgeous, as Whitney Houston is, and she's being stalked, and the guy gets closer and closer to her life and her family, her age, and there's no need for performance. Let me act one. This is radio theater for you now. But there's one where they go to Miami, and the stalker, who we know exists, but Whitney doesn't believe exists, and so she sends Kevin Costner's just getting in her weave, and she's like, "Get out, leave!" And he leaves, and as soon as he leaves, the phone rings, and it's for Rachel Marin. She's like, "Hello?" It's like, "Mommy." And she goes, "Hey, baby." She has a son. "Hey, baby." He goes, "Mommy. And you see her face go blank because the stalker has reached her. Now it's like a passage of time, sunrise, sunset, and then in comes Kevin Costner. He's been called back, and there's this sort of Berry Gordy kind of record executive character who's like, "Oh boy, Kevin Costner, you should have been here earlier. She was crazy, crying, screaming, throwing stuff. She's out on the roof now." And so he walks out, and she's sitting on the roof, blank face, the exact same expression she had for the football game.
Is that the sum of her?
Yes. So it's like, oh boy. I thought if I ever wrote a script for myself, it'd be like, oh.
If you had only seen 10 minutes ago.
You should have been here. She was acting up a storm, crazy, crying through laughter. There's another scene where she's really angry, and you just see someone else's hand in close up put down a glass, pour in an inch of orange juice, glug, 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 and then vodka, glug, 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 glug. You never see her drink it. It's just like, ooh, things have gone bad. And then at the very, very end, spoiler alert, the stalker ends up being her sister, who, when she was very, very high, I quote the movie, hired an assassin who she doesn't even remember who it was, so she can't stop it. And now they're in and now they're in the dark, and the assassin is there to kill Rachel Marin, and she realizes in a moment that her sister is the one who's responsible for her death, and then her sister steps out into the shadows, and bang, bang, bang. The sister is killed in front of her child and Kevin Costner.
Well, that's just justice, isn't it?
Yes.
That's the way it should be.
But what follows is it's such a twisted turn. No, but this speaks to the actor-proofness. It's such a twisted turn. It's something you could never recover from psychologically. So this is how they do it in the movie. It's just like Whitney's in the dark, nothing, bang, 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 sister dead, and they cut to montage, and it's like radio, and it's like great superstar, and it's a big zoom of a funeral procession. And it goes from like a helicopter down to like the funeral sticker on the car. It's like all done in voiceover. Never seen her. It's like superstar Rachel Marin has had to deal with the incredible tragic death of her sister. She's very much in mourning. But it's all done in voiceover and close up and image. And the next time you see Whitney, she's in the backyard, kind of blank faced. It's kind of like, hey, Kevin Costner, what's up? But it did create an amazing soundtrack that lives with us all.
Best-selling soundtrack of all time.
Yes.
With
I
Celebrity.
Michelle Visage, track 9.
Well, why? She never has to work again.
Michelle?
Right? Yes.
According to Michelle, she
45 million records.
She bought her parents a condo with that money. I don't know if she ever has to work again, but she it was Soul System.
Right.
What is it?
Lovely Day.
Lovely Day.
Yeah. I never saw Bodyguard because I couldn't get past the outfit that she wears in the commercial, that metallic breastplate.
Queen of the Night. The
with
Queen
the-
of
with the-
James, I thought you would love that.
No, that was horrible. It was
Night.
horrible. It was so cheaply made. It was just with the big pearl, metallic
I thought it
pearl
was a
necklace.
Thierry Mugler nod.
Oh, it was a bad knockoff.
It looked kind of like an outfit Lucy Ricardo would wear, but then made futuristic. And in the movie, she's kind of wearing like a cape, and she's at the Ivy. And then she goes to perform her new record, and you're sort of made to believe she's been sitting on those big-ass pearls of the dress the whole time. But Queen of the Night is an amazing song. We've tried to clear it for Drag Race as a lip-sync song. We haven't been able to do it. But Queen
I
of the
just
Night,
don't know that I can ever see it. I just don't think I can get past that bad Terry Mugler knockoff.
Have you seen Glitter?
No, I've never seen Glitter either.
Oh, okay. Another classic club pop
It
star.
didn't make the list.
We
Right.
talked about this, but I'm not in the Mariah Carey camp. I can't do it.
Or the Whitney Houston camp.
Well, I loved Whitney. I loved Whitney for a time.
So then who did you pick for number 9 as the ninth biggest movie turkey of all time? So bad it's good.
Number 9.
Well, after I've gotten on my high horse,
Yes.
auteur. I'm too good for the Bodyguard. Let me just say that my number 9 choice is Annie.
The musical.
Annie the musical.
Which Annie?
The
Excuse me.
1982 version. God damn, I love those plucky little orphans. I must have seen that movie 110 times when it came out. I had seen...
One question.
Yeah?
Why? Because I've seen it too.
No, okay, I saw it on Broadway. I saw it with Sarah Jessica Parker,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so then about a year later, the movie came out, and my little sister was 10, I think. I was 16, and I took her to that movie every single day for a month.
You saw it in the theater that many times, not on cable.
30 times in a month. And to this day, Elizabeth and I talk to each other in
sister?
Annie lyrics. We text each other Annie lyrics at 3 a.m, okay? So it has a special place in my heart. It's not a good movie.
It was disappointing because I loved the soundtrack. I never saw the Broadway show, but I loved the Broadway soundtrack.
Well, we'll get into the soundtrack because they made a lot of mistakes with doing the soundtrack. But one of it was a perfect storm of bad decisions. Basically, is what happened. They had for the director, you have this great Broadway musical with all these great songs, and instead of getting somebody like Alan Carr or Vincent Minnelli
Yes.
or someone who is dead, I'm sorry, but they went with John Huston to direct. And John Huston...
Gravitas, right?
Yeah, John Huston was a huge director in the 40s and 50s. He did The Maltese Falcon.
Right.
He did The Treasure of the Sierra Madres. He did
Angelica Houston's dad.
Pritzi. Yeah, he did Pritzi's Honor.
And he did Annie.
Yeah, but this
Makes perfect sense.
This is his first musical. He did over 50 movies, and most of them were westerns and noir and stuff like that. But he decided for some reason somebody suggested him for Annie, and he said yes. Okay, I'll do it. You have Albert Finney, who's like an Englishman's Englishman, and he is very much not a song and dance man.
And he's playing Daddy Warbucks.
He's playing Daddy Warbucks, but he has a number of show-stopping numbers that he's supposed to do it, and he just sort of sing-talks his way through them and sort of walks instead of dances. He's really just clumsy and awkward. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Carol Burnett playing Mrs. Hannigan.
Which I thought was going to be brilliant way back in the day.
Well, it is brilliant in its own way, but she's sort of doing a parody on her show of this character. She's off in La La Land. She's doing a completely different movie. We have a really great cast of Anne Rankin, who is Bob Fosse's protege in Lover.
She plays the secretary. We got Annie.
We got Annie. Yes, You got Jeffrey Holder from the 7-Up commercials.
Yes. Thank you for that credit.
You have Bernadette Peters Dearest, who is just the height of her loveliness. She's absolutely gorgeous.
With Tim Curry, right? Don't they do?
Well, Tim Curry is sort of an interesting case, too, because you can tell that he's still bitter, that he's landed here in his career after Rocky Horror. And
It's like a third lead in Annie the Musical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He thought he was going to be a big star, and then Rocky Horror really derailed him for about 20 years, almost. I mean, you can argue that.
Well, he should have been a much bigger star.
He should have been a much bigger star.
Life is unjust.
Right. So then you get to the soundtrack, and you've got all these great, great songs. But for some reason, the composer of the movie soundtrack shuttled like 7 songs from the Broadway show and decided to write 4 of his own that he thought were going to be better.
Yeah.
And they were like, dumb dog, why are you following me? I ain't got a crumb, dog. How about letting me be? Which I love. I love all those songs.
And then they kill like NYC or something.
They killed NYC.
It's such a great song.
And they also, for some reason, the composer and John Huston both thought Tomorrow wasn't that good of a song.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, and so they sort of like put it halfway through and they sing it for a couple minutes and then they let it go. Like they really just used it as an aside instead of making it a big, huge
Start with
showstopper.
it, do it in the middle, end with it.
So it was a bomb, right?
It was a huge bomb. Yes. Now it has sort of a cult classic to it, probably because I talk about it to anyone who will listen.
What about the 2014 Annie, the Will Smith produced version
that
with
is
Jamie
an abomination
Foxx?
unto God. Okay, I
was
will
a
not
flop.
broke any conversation about.
I loved it. I thought it was so great.
How dare you?
What's
sir.
wrong with it?
How,
Cameron Diaz is Mrs. Hannigan.
and Cameron Diaz is
Jamie
like
Foxx.
29 years old. She is not a washed up, nasty old or she can't do it. There was no way she could do it.
And Rose Byrne.
No.
Great actors.
Come to my defense, please.
I was not compelled to see the newer Annie.
Yeah,
But I'll tell you something because there was a 1999 version on TV that had Kathy Bates as Miss Hannigan, and that's sort of an interesting take on it. Although, once again, you have these. It's sort of kathunky. Like I thought the new version. Like they just didn't get the beats right. I really thought John Huston really did sort of get it had a nice flow to it. Also, I do want to say that I don't know if you remember, but Martika was the big star that came out.
One
of
Tin
Annie.
Soldier.
All
she
Fall
play?
Down.
Did she play?
She was one of the orphans.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Well, okay. I picked for number 8.
Number 8.
Actually, it's one of my favorite. It is my most favorite movie of all time. I mean, it was a big bomb when it came out. Starship Troopers, by the legendary director Paul Verhoeven, perhaps more famously known for Showgirls, but also, of course, Fatal Attraction. Have you guys seen it?
Yeah, and and it's one of those movies that you keep hearing how bad it is and how horrible it is. But when you watch it, I enjoyed every single minute of it.
It's absolutely fantastic. It's a hard story to summarize, but basically it's loosely based on Robert Heinlein's book of the same title, science fiction book. But the interesting thing is Paul Verhoeven started to read it, and he got so bored and depressed he didn't finish it and went on to make the movie without bothering to read the original book. And I think that's a really good thing.
Oh my God, I'm not the only one who works like that. I'm so excited to hear that.
Wait, it's Casper Van Dien, right?
It's Casper Van
And
Dien.
he's so good.
He
gorge,
plays a mobile infantryman in outer space. And basically, this is set in the future. It's a sci-fi drama. It's set in the future when the Earth is united, the one world, new world order has come to be under the Federation, and everything's great and we're very prosperous. But we are at war with a planet far, far away that is populated by bugs. The
Right.
arachnids, and they live on Klendatu. I love that. Like, you know it's a
Klendatu.
50s original because they're Klendatu, They always have their K names. Anyway, we're at war with these bugs. The interesting thing about it is Paul Verhoeven, who experienced Nazi-occupied, he grew up under Nazi-occupied Netherlands. He ends up taking the America of today, and it actually becomes kind of a fascistic, Nazi-esque America. And everybody is prosperous and everybody is beautiful and they sort of look Aryan and they're hairless and they're gorgeous and the girls are beautiful and the men are gorgeous. But it's basically the Nazis won. And the Federation logo looks like, a Nazi eagle, and all the sort of beautiful military uniforms. They're Nazi uniforms. And we're at war with these bugs. And so what he does so brilliantly, and I think for this reason the movie was way ahead of its time, is he reverses the stakes. So we, the victors, the Americans, end up being the Nazis, and the enemies who won the war are the bugs, are the Jews. He does this brilliant sleight of hand, and it's a very disturbing movie because on the one hand, it's very crass. And he said, I mean, Paul Verhoeven was asked, why was he doing this sort of right-wing fascist movie? And he said, no, you don't understand. It's not that at all. It's like, if I tell the world that a right-wing fascist way of doing things doesn't work, no one will listen to me. So I'm going to make a perfect fascist world where everyone is beautiful, everything is shiny, everything has big guns and fancy ships, but it's only good for killing fucking bugs. And the movie it's fantastically camp. But it's just sheer genius. They have unisex showers, and it's very
I was
sort
going to
of
say,
hot.
all I know about this movie are gifs of like Casper in a shower. Isn't that right?
Yes, with Denise Richards.
Well, I was going to
Yes.
say the cast of this is incredibly camp too, because you've got Casper Van Dien and Denise Richards, who are not considered to be great actors.
By you.
But they're really good. They work really well together. But also, Rue McClanahan was in it, and Neil Patrick Harris,
yes, she was,
and
that's right.
Patrick Muldoon from Days of Our Lives.
Neil Patrick Harris was brilliantly cast at Doogie Howser as a sort of brainiac doctor, and he wears a Nazi-type trench coat, and he's the one who comes up with the telepathy and the mind control tricks to figure out what the bugs are up to. Frankly, it's a very hard movie to describe, as I've just realized, and failed miserably.
I think you've made a very compelling case.
But you have to see it. And Mark Wahlberg, thank God he turned down the role, because Casper Van Dien makes such a better... Casper Van Dien, in his heyday, not so much now, was just so plastic looking and so perfect. And
Perfection.
He had this slightly wooden way of acting. It was a sort of Barbie doll, Ken doll universe of embracing these values that just result in sort of artificial non-people, and we're at war with these very, very intelligent bugs. It's just such a brilliant movie, and
It sounds sort of like it might work very well as a double feature with Gattaca.
Yes, absolutely, it would.
And
I think
so,
it came out around
sort of the same sort of ideas
Yeah.
about this future being populated by these perfect people and fascistic and all that stuff. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, I need to give it another.
I'd watch it with Annie, but that's just me. I like a little yin and yang.
Well, we've got to take a quick break, so I'll leave you guys with this quick trivia question.
Good.
How long was the soundtrack for Bodyguard? Number one.
Oh.
Long time.
You're listening to the Wow Report on Radio Andy on Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fender Bailey with Tom Campbell and James St. James. Before the break, I asked you, how long was the Bodyguard soundtrack in the number one spot?
I'm going to say 37 weeks.
I'm going to say a full year, 52 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Well, it was the biggest selling soundtrack of all time.
Yeah.
So Blake, what's the answer?
Short answer, it was number one for 13 consecutive weeks or 20 non-consecutive weeks.
Wow, math is fun.
That was a lot of records, 45 million records. So this week on the Wow Report, we are counting down the top 10 movie turkeys, celluloid turkeys
So bad they're good.
of all time.
Yes.
They're finger-licking good. So bad, they're finger-licking good. What have we got at number 7, Tom?
Number 7.
I have a movie that's new for me, relatively new for me, that was made in 1967, and it's called Berserk.
Oh, I love me some Berserk.
Exclamation point. And it's Joan Crawford's next to last movie. Trog, I guess, was her last movie.
Well, she went out on a high note.
Yes, she did. I'm watching it, and Joan Crawford, who's deep into her 60s, looks kind of flawless. And I was reading about it. It was made in England. It was like a foreign film. She was brought in, and it was so low budget that she brought her own costumes. She brought
own
her own
jewelry.
hair. She has like a, it doesn't really matter. The actor's name was Ty Harden. It's set in a circus. And as I was watching it, I'm like, oh my, a murder's in a circus. I'm like, oh my God, Ryan Murphy saw this before I did. when he made American Horror Story Freak Show, because it's that kind of setting. There's freaks and hairy ladies and fat ladies and bearded women, and
then there's Joan.
And then there's Joan, who's snatched, and she has that red hair, Joan, and it's sort of like the hair is snatched back in a way that helps give you a facelift, and she looks flawless, and she is lit. So you only see the part of her face that's acting. You don't see her chin, you don't see her forehead.
This is the period of her life where the older she got, she made sure to insert in every single script, she's the loveliest woman in town.
Yes.
Like everybody is like bowled over by her beauty as she gets older and more decrepit,
Yes.
right? And what a lovely woman, people say as she walks past.
And it starts off with like the tightrope person coming to a brutal death, and the man and all these murders keep happening, but the man that replaces him, his name is Ty Hardin, and he was this hot actor.
I remember Ty
in the '60s. I was reading about him. He was meant to be Batman on the TV show, turned it down. Like he has one of those sad careers where it's like, oh, Ty, because he ended up having to sort of kiss Joan Crawford in her like late '60s.
I would have done that.
I kiss her
Bragging
corpse right now.
Yeah.
But it's kind of that great, 67 was a great year for style and color, and like in the 60s, every year had its own kind of like.
She has a wonderful ringleader outfit, doesn't she? Like
Yes.
red and white with a black jacket, and it's like cut up high.
Which again, I'm imagining
shows off her legs.
she had in her closet and just packed. Just like, it's sort of high-low because there's these like sort of high Joan Crawford fashions and her stylized acting, which even in a bad movie is kind of fantastic.
Right.
But then there's all this kind of like stock footage of some London circus, and you're so aware where it's like, whoa, that doesn't look anything like the movie. But there's an elephant in the movie now. It's great. Spoiler alert, because who the hell of you is going to watch this movie?
I feel like I'm gonna rush right out.
is that it was and prophetic as the future. It's like it turns out her daughter comes back in the middle, and Diana Dors,
Diana
Dors.
the British Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, and I'd heard about her. I'd never seen her in action. She was
fabulous.
And she is the beautiful lady in the circus who gets sawed in half, who unfortunately, due to a murderous twist, gets sawed in half.
But wait, wasn't Diana Dors? Didn't she go from like Marilyn Monroe to Shelley Winters like in the course of like 5 years?
Yes.
She couldn't have been very pretty at this point.
She was still pretty.
Was she?
If she wasn't Marilyn Monroe at this point, she was Ginger Grant from Gilligan's Island. She was still holding it together. And fun fact, I didn't realize with Diana Dors that she was married for a period of time to a young like British comedian named Dickie Dawson, who would later move to America and become Richard Dawson.
Match
Game.
No.
And
yes.
Wait, what's the other one?
She's
Match
married to a
Game
number
and
of
Family
people, I think.
Feud.
Match Game and Family Feud, yes.
But I think she was married to quite a few people, wasn't she?
Yeah, she went through them.
As
She went through them, but that was
required.
I think they had 2 children and it was anything. But
Dickie Dawson, that's so funny.
young Dickie Dawson, he just had like a little bit of a show in like England.
Didn't know he was British.
And the idea is that Dickie Dawson in the 70s, because Match Game and Family Feud were so big and so huge, and there were 3 networks, he was seen by like 90 million people every day.
He was a bigger star than Diana.
One of the biggest stars in the world at that
Yes.
point. But in a cruel twist, spoiler alert, her daughter did it. Joan Crawford's daughter was the murderer the whole time. Mommy, pay attention to me, which might be a harbinger for something coming.
Wait,
a
wasn't
little
the
bit
daughter?
later in our
Didn't the daughter
countdown.
do it in Straight Jacket too?
Oh, I'm not going to spoil 2 movies. Not here, not today.
Wow. Okay.
Berserk, starring Joan Crawford, darlings.
James, what have you got for us at number 6?
Number 6.
I've got Batman and Robin. This is the 1997 version. It's the 4th entry into the franchise. Okay, we've had Tim Burton at this point. We've had Michael Keaton. We've had Val Kilmer, and now we bring on George Clooney to be Batman.
Sounds
okay?
like a good idea.
It sounds
on paper.
He was the biggest star in the world. He was on ER. I mean, he was the biggest TV star. This was his big foray into the movies. He was going to be huge. This was going to propel him to superstardom.
And his Robin was
His
Chris
Robin-
O'Donnell, right?
Chris O'Donnell. The director of this one was Joel Schumacher, who was he was a friend of Dorothy's, and his idea behind it was that he wanted to bring it back to the camp 1960s version.
Good for him.
Right? He, yeah, okay, I get it. Tim Burton had done a really good job of sort of balancing the camp and the dark side.
No.
No.
Okay.
So Tim Burton had also done a really good job of sort of like juggling two villains at once. He had, the Catwoman and the Penguin in one. And so Joel Schumacher thought, well, if he can do two, I'm going to have three villains. And he decided to have Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, and Bane all in the same movie. And Mr. Freeze is Arnold Schwarzenegger, who can't act his way out of a paper bag, and he's just these horrible puns the entire time. Joel said that he wanted to his Mr. Freeze should be big and strong, like he was chiseled from a glacier, and that sort of describes his acting.
I'm enjoying
too.
that.
He also Joel is sort of throwing everything in the kitchen sink at this movie. He's got three villains. He's got Batman. So he throws in Robin. He throws in Batgirl, and he sort of gets that whole thing wrong because he has Batgirl as being Alfred's niece, and that's not. She's Commissioner Gordon's daughter. We all know that.
Fact.
Right? Exactly. He's credited for giving Batman the rubber nipples.
How long was it going to take for you to make the rubber nipples? All I remember from that movie was that there were nipples on Batman.
And the cod pieces. Do you remember that Batman and Robin wore huge, enormous cod pieces and had giant bat nipples? And the entire movie is just shot after shot of Chris O'Donnell's ass and George Clooney's, like the bat butts and the bat crotches. And George Clooney has even said that he was playing it gay. He decided that Batman was gay and that was his backstory, and he was going to that there's the homoerotic elements in this movie.
Are you saying that it's so bad it's good?
I'm
Or are you saying so bad it's bad?
No, I'm saying visually, this movie is beyond garish, beyond like grotesque, and the colors are too bright. It's
this coming from James St. James.
No, it's just seeped in this lurid, like just this like neon Technicolor, and it's you can't take your eyes off it. The Gotham City, which is supposed to be the World's Fair on acid, is what the set designer said is what she wanted. And the whole idea of it is it's so much happening at every single moment, and he crams every scene, every inch of every frame with, like the bat nipples and the cod and
But is Joel Schumacher really to blame? Because look, here's the thing: like the superhero, the law of superhero movies is that you need to add more villains. I mean, they all do that, right? Even the endless Spider-Man remakes, they just cram in more villains.
And that's what
Number
kills
one.
them.
Number two, wasn't the huge mistake made many movies earlier when they decided to say Batman, frankly, and Robin, the campus concept ever, when they said, no, we're going to make it psychologically real.
And
we're going to make it dark and
hold
noir.
on.
I think that is a crime.
No, okay, well, let me address
and
both
I think
of
Joel
these.
Schumacher was handed
Okay.
a steaming pile of poo.
Kellyanne Conway here.
Back on message, James.
Let me allow me to answer before you keep throwing out your pivots. Okay. Number one, with Tim Burton, even when you're watching the Tim Burton, number two, you're thinking to yourself that this could be two different movies. So the idea of throwing in all these villains probably isn't a good idea.
Well, it was a huge mistake to make the thing serious. It was the campest idea ever, the 60s Batman.
No, but what happened afterwards was that Joel went and said that he wanted to do another one, and they said, absolutely not, you've killed the franchise. And he did kill it for almost 10 years. This was 97, it was 2005 before Christopher Nolan got it. And afterwards, he said that he wanted to do Batman Year One, which was a famous thing in DC Comics where it sort of went back to the beginning, and it went back to being simple and sort of stark and elegant and everything like that. And they said, no, you aren't the guy to do that, but maybe Darren Aronofsky is the guy to do that. And so they went to talk to Darren Aronofsky, and they had sort of planned to take Batman back to being sort of more serious. And that's when things fell through with Darren, that's when they went with Christopher. So actually, it was because things had gotten so over the top with Joel that they went the next direction with Christopher Nolan, which I think was the right way to go. But poor Joel Schumacher was pilloried for this movie, and I don't know that he ever got back on track again because he really, the DC fans hate him for what they did. But I think it's sort of a fascinating movie to watch. I think you're never bored for a second, even though it's sort of groan worthy. And but there, George Clooney, you gotta love it. You got to.
Batman and Robin, James, you had me at bat nipples.
Well, moving on, I thought.
I'm sorry. Hold on.
No,
I need a drink after that one.
Well, Jess, how about this? My next bomb of a movie is one I played a small part in myself. Wrote and directed, actually co-wrote and co-directed it.
Number 5.
Party Monster.
What?
Yes, because I felt that having flung mud at Joel Schumacher and the whole Batman franchise, I just feel I'm standing on very thin.
It's time to
ice.
mud mask yourself. You
To
and
reveal.
James. This is James' life story directed by you.
Well, yes.
I do want to say, in
What do
your
you-
defense, okay, I don't think that you realize how much that movie means to a lot of people. I do get, not a day goes by on Twitter where I don't get somebody telling me how they're just watching the movie now and it's changed their lives, or this is something that is really an important movie to them. A whole generation of kids have grown up little ravers and outsiders and goths.
Well, hopefully
and,
that's why it's so bad it's good, right?
Okay,
exactly.
yes.
That's our
Yeah.
purpose here today.
But I don't want you to beat yourself up too much over it because it is a
Well-
classic in its way.
Well,
Doing
I can't
my-
believe you guys are saying it's bad at all. I think it's great.
Okay, well, I'll just read you some reviews that I was looking
Oh
at.
no.
The only one truly entertained by the clown with the lampshade on his head is the clown with the lampshade on his head.
and what's wrong with that? You can't love yourself.
This one really hurts. The worst comedy since Death to Smoochie. Okay, how about this? Fenton Bailey and Randy Barbado, who wrote and directed, think the way to make a movie about shallow, aimless lives descending into chaos is for the movie itself to be shallow, aimless, and to descend into chaos.
But you guys need to recap the history of this a little bit, how it all connects you to.
Okay, I will, but I just have to read one more
All right.
first. There are many ways of depicting an innocent's descent into hell, but the camp approach is surely the least advisable.
Disagree.
So on that note, Party Monster really is the story of Michael Ailig, King of the Club Kids, which was a youth movement in the 90s of sort of misfits, really.
New York
who
City.
became in New York City, who became in New York's clubs a nationwide phenomenon, and actually internationally, an international phenomenon. And they were sort of all, the Club Kid concept was all about taking the most foolish, ridiculous, unfashionable thing you could do and putting it on you, right? It was turning any idea of cool inside out, embracing foolishness, clownishness, naffness, but making it cool. It was a sort of alchemical transformation. And you, James, were one of the club kids. And it was a fantastic, creative, anarchic scene. And then, of course, what sort of is the basis of the movie is Michael Ailig's descent from being this brilliant marketeer and live event promoter into sort of drug-addled mass and ultimately a murderer.
Played by Macaulay Culkin.
Played by Macaulay Culkin in his first role in
As
9
an
years.
adult.
We had the most amazing cast. I mean,
Unbelievable.
Seth
To this
Green.
day.
Seth Green played James St. James and was the first one on board, and he really persuaded Macaulay Culkin to come out of retirement and do this movie. Marilyn Manson, Chloe Sevigny,
Natasha Lyonne,
Wilson
John
Cruz,
Stamos.
Dylan McDermott. I mean, it is
Very
like,
young Wilmer
the
Valderrama.
funny thing is, it was a very hard movie to raise the money to make. I mean, we had grandiose delusions of a $15 million budget that just shrank until we were down to like a few pennies. But they would-be financiers kept on saying, you need to get more names, bigger, better names. And we ended up with this incredible star-studded cast. And none of which helped raise the money, really, ultimately, that we got to make the film. And we made the film. Shot it digitally in 25 days. And one of the reviews said it looked like it had been soaked in dirty dishwater.
No, it's
It's
beautiful.
outrageous.
It's so gorgeous to look at. It really is a fun movie to look at.
And Michael Wilkinson did the costumes. And, of course, he went on to do, like, enormous
Kabuki
epic-
did the makeup.
And Kabuki did the makeup. I mean, it was an amazing lineup of people.
Perfect to watch over a long Thanksgiving weekend.
And you know, the thing about the Club Kids, though, to this day, I get irritated that it's sort of being buried in history, that people, I feel like it's being erased, the Club Kid movement. And it really was the first safe space for genderqueer youths, I think. It was really one of the first places where kids who weren't drag queens, who weren't traditional gays, could go and do whatever they wanted. And there was a lot of gender fluidity there, and a lot of we were a family, and we took care of each other for the most part.
Beautiful. It feels like a Netflix series that needs to happen.
There you go.
Okay, well, I think we said quite enough about that, so we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back. What's our question? Our question is... Oh, I know. Okay. What was the name of the book that Party Monster was based on?
Oh, gosh. Oh, my goodness. Goodness, what could that be?
This is the WoW Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the WoW Report. I'm Fenton Bailey with Tom Campbell and James St. James. We're coming to you live from Hollywood, and we've been counting down the top 10 turkey movies of all time. So bad, they're good. So bad, they're just delicious. Now, before the break, we asked you what was the name of the book that Party Monster was based on, because when the book came out, it was called Party Monster, but that was not the original title of the book.
I think the author might be able to help us with that.
Well, it's interesting you should ask.
James.
It was originally called Disco Bloodbath.
It was.
And then,
book by James St. James?
By James St. James, by me. And then when the movie came out, they changed the title of my book to the movie to match the movie. And I was horrified at the time. How dare you? But it ended up actually working in my favor.
It's grown on you.
Because I hadn't gotten any residuals up until that point. And once the book changed titles to match the movie, that's when I started getting moolah.
Look at you. You're just rolling in money.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
So carrying on with our countdown of top 10 turkeys of all time, and celluloid turkeys.
Yes.
What do we have at number 4?
Number 4.
At number 4, we have a place where nobody dared to go. The love that we came to know. They call it Xanadu! Xanadu, everyone! How can you do a turkey list without Xanadu? It should be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I, again, go on record as saying Olivia Newton-John mothered me. I love Olivia Newton-John so much. She was one of my first artists. She was the epitome of the 70s, of beauty, of sunshine. Yes, I loved her country pre-Grease. But when Grease came out in 1978, like you saw Annie, I saw Grease in the theater so many times. And then it was on cable, and I saw it I can't even tell you how many times I've seen Grease.
I'm right with you.
And it's the perfect movie. It doesn't grow old. She is exquisite in it. And in 1980, when Xanadu came out, there was, you know how this town works. Like, Olivia Newton-John was the #1 box office draw woman of anybody. And she was up for like Evita. They were to make Evita the movie. And maybe Olivia Newton-John's on the short list. You know, she was hot, hot, hot. So there was so much anticipation of what Xanadu might be. And there was I remember there was books, there was Xanadu clothing lines. Joel Silver, the great producer, was behind all of this.
Well, the album came out before the movie did.
Well, the album is his own thing.
Okay, but I remember getting the album and listening to every song, imagining what the movie could be.
And it was ELO. There was an ELO side and an ONJ side. That's how they not A and B, but whatever. And Magic was #1 in the country, and it was kind of an exquisite kind of techno pop. Olivia Newton-John song was so good. And I went to the movies in Dartmouth and Hanover, New Hampshire, when I was in senior year in high school, and it was like me and 4 kids whose mother dropped them off. And it was the worst thing at the time. But I've come to love it. Olivia Newton-John was never more beautiful. No. She is just shot. And, you know, it's fun. Probably everyone has seen Xanadu, but if you haven't, it's fun to do a little quick plot summary, because Olivia Newton-John plays one of Zeus's 7 muse daughters that has inspired the likes of Shakespeare and Michelangelo. And in 1980, she comes alive in a mural in Venice Beach to inspire Sonny Malone, a guy who paints record albums into giant, Tower Records thing, and Gene Kelly, a former big band guy from the 40s who's now an industrialist. She brings them together to make the best roller disco palace that's ever existed.
But wait a minute, the guy who plays the artist is was from
Warriors.
Warriors. Come on, playing it, and he was going to be the hottest star in the world too, and this killed his career, didn't it?
It didn't help, and it was Gene Kelly's.
Michael Beck. Yes.
Yes, and it was Gene Kelly's last movie, and
He went out on a high note, as far as I'm concerned.
Was that he came on as an advisor, and then he goes, "I'll be in it," and then he ends up singing and dancing. But it's a movie that happened before MTV, right before MTV. And, MTV introduced us into sort of that the edit was the dance. Do you know what I'm saying? Like the images dance. This was like old MGM musical, like wide shots, extras, set moves.
All around the world when they finally opened the disco and everyone's dancing. Rollerblading through Fiorucci's, wasn't it?
And again, it's worth seeing for the pure camp value. She's beautiful. The music is kind of great. But it was 1980 was when Disco Sucks kicked in. And I remember like Xanadu was like a song that they burnt in effigy. But I'm a huge Olivia Newton-John fan. Away from all the hype of what it was supposed to be, it's something nice to have on in the background. It also has some sort of pre-Tron 1980 special effects, where she's constantly surrounded with the light, which I like to think of myself that way. But
that too has gone on to have a camp life of its own. And there was a Broadway version of it recently in the past couple of years.
Yeah, there was a great Broadway parody of it. They made great fun of it. But I remember about the Broadway show is the first time I saw Cheyenne Jackson in cut off jeans. His thighs were spectacular in Xanadu.
I suppose what's so good about it is it ends up being a record of the time. It's sort of like a classic period piece of disco deco. It's just with ELO as well. It's just fantastic.
And a time when Hollywood was like naive enough to say, you know what, everyone's roller skating now. Cher's roller skating and Linda Ronstadt's roller skating. Let's make a movie about it, And not knowing that the trend would be dead 6 months before the movie was completed. But it's worth seeing for your Thanksgiving turkey enjoyment.
Xanadu. James, what have you got at number 3?
Number 3.
I'm a little scared about this one. I risk incurring the wrath of Fenton Bailey here because my number 3 was going to be every single damn Madonna movie ever.
Anything with Madonna in it.
Anything with Madonna in it.
It's so bad it's good.
It is so bad. She's got a lot of real flops. When you think of Swept Away, Body of Evidence, Dangerous Game, Next Big Thing, Shanghai Surprise, even the movies that we give her credit for, League of Their Own.
Desperately Seeking Susan.
No, okay, I will give you Desperately Seeking Susan and Truth or Dare. That is 2 great movies, right? Okay. And I will say that, like A League of Their Own, she and Rosie are doing their own movie. They're like they are like the Nickelodeon School of Acting, while Gina Davis and Tom Hanks are doing something else. And then you have Dick Tracy, which didn't really work at the time. It was a huge turkey. It was so 80s, and this was like in the 90s.
It's a big body of work you're dissing.
But I wanted to concentrate on one that is so bad it's good and that I love more than life itself.
Evita.
No. Don't get me started on Evita, okay? Who's That Girl, okay?
Okay.
Who's That Girl was gorgeous. It was fabulous. It was so wrong, it was right. Okay, what you have is Madonna, who wants to do a 30s screwball movie, right? And she's been studying the movies of Judy Holliday. And so all of a sudden, Madonna,
who's from the 50s, but keep going.
Right. but had done a bunch of sort of screwball, was known as sort of a screwy dame type character. And so Madonna starts talking with this accent, right? And it's sort of like, it's a little bit like Jerry Lewis doing a Cyndi Lauper by way of Betty Boop, okay?
Nice.
And she starts talking like this in real life. If you remember, she goes on the Johnny Carson show, and she's talking like this the entire time, right? Okay. And people make fun of her for going British when she married Guy Ritchie.
She does her research. She embraces her
But you
roles.
have this girl from Michigan who has first decided that she grew up in Yonkers, and then she decided that she's from some Manchester or something.
She's very suggestible.
She's very suggestible.
You see, I love when Madonna plays, great fascist people like Eva Peron or the Duchess of Windsor.
Right.
That's
Anyways,
sorry.
Okay, who's that girl? You have the story. Her name is Nikki Finn, and she's a plucky girl, right from the wrong side of the tracks. And you learned there's a great animated sequence in the beginning. I don't know if you remember. It's like a 10-minute animated sequence in which you get the backstory for Nikki Finn, and she's been wrongly accused of murder, and she spent time in prison. And the opening scene is she gets out of prison in a fabulous little sort of faux Gautier outfit, and Griffin Dunn is there to pick her up. Now, Griffin Dunn is an uptight lawyer who's about to marry the daughter of the wealthiest man in New York City, but before he does, he has to pick up Nikki Finn and get her to the bus station for no discernible reason. And he also has to pick up this cougar, right? This mountain lion.
A real cougar.
A real mountain lion, yeah. And deliver it to some eccentric billionaire or something like that.
I'm in.
Right, exactly. So you have elements of Desperately Seeking Susan, because she's the wacky, who's running from the law, and she's trying to clear her name. You've got, for Griffin Dunn, you've got elements of After Hours, because he's this uptight man in a chaotic situation. Then you've got all this sort of bringing up baby that's happening, and you've also got the Philadelphia story, which is him marrying the rich girl, and he's sort of da-da-da-da-da. She's at her most 80s here, where she's got this bleach blonde popcorn hairdo, right? That's like so out to here. She's got these giant caterpillar eyebrows.
Dark eyebrows.
The tits from Batman and Robin, the eyebrows, like
that's
all
cannot,
I remember.
All you remember are the eyebrows on this. You also have this. There's the iconic scene where she's in the white tube dress that I had. I had the exact same dress. I wore it to death. I loved it. It's a very convoluted story, and yet she manages to carry you through it the entire time. She is so watchable and so charismatic that even at her worst, and this is up there with her worst, like you can't take your eyes off of her. And it spawned 3 big hits. It was Who's That Girl? Causing a Commotion.
I remember well.
And the down-tempo ballad, Look of Love. Do you remember that?
Not as big a hit.
No, it was huge. Because I didn't really remember it either. But anyway, I really think that if you haven't watched it, you really need to, because it will give you a whole look into a forgotten part of the Madonna of the 80s.
Who's that girl?
Who's that girl?
I just can't. Well, I can. Because in this next movie, biggest turkey of all time movies, I didn't direct it or write it. I'm in it.
What?
Yes, it is
Number 2.
Heaven's Gate.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was in Heaven's Gate. Now, Heaven's Gate, I was an extra, okay? Non-speaking role. And I was a student at Oxford, and they wanted to film some scenes for the movie Heaven's Gate at Harvard. But Harvard said, you're not bringing your Hollywood trash here. So they went to Oxford. By the way, this movie at this point was so over budget. The idea of just crossing the ocean and going to another university to shoot, I think there was just so much money in the hole, it just really didn't matter. Anyway, long story short, they came to Oxford. I got a job as an extra, £15 a day. That was a lot of money in 1980.
That's the beer money, yeah.
And the interesting thing is, I couldn't really tell you, frankly, what Heaven's Gate is about. It's about some kind of war set in 1870-ish, but it's basically Chris Christopherson and John Hurt. That's all I really know. Yeah. And I have seen the movie, but I cannot really recall anything about it.
Not a good sign.
But
Chris Christopherson was a huge star at that time.
And John Hurt was too.
Oh, right.
Mm-hmm.
Was Chris Christopherson ever in a hit movie, though?
Yes, of course. He was in
Star is Born was sort of...
He was in the thing with Burt
Reynolds.
Reynolds.
The football movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Anywho, they came, and I suppose the movie really is about greed, and it was amazing. I was just reading a guy who was also an extra, was telling his story. He went on to become, this is interesting, he went on to become the clinical assistant professor of philosophy at the Catholic University of America. Anyway, he wrote a thing about his experience as an extra, and he said that basically the greed that the movie is about infected the extras. And we all became greedy, grasping pigs. And you know what? It's true.
It's true.
After a couple of days, what we were supposed to do was dance around the streets. One of the opening early sequences in the movie. It's on YouTube. I just watched it last night, and it's way too long. And even though I was scrutinizing, I could not see me.
Oh,
That's all I wanted to know.
Oh, thank you. But we're all dancing, and I only vaguely remember it. Maybe I got a concussion, but we were going around a tree that had been specially placed there because no expense was spared to place an enormous fully grown oak tree in the middle of a university square. Going around a tree, and all these people rush in, and they're trying to get the floral bunch of flowers that are on the tree. And anyway, a fight ensues, and it's very real. And the extras said, this is bodily harm. We're risking bodily harm, 15 pounds a day, and we all went on strike.
Wow.
Now, my recollection is we all went on strike and we were locked out of a set, and that was that. His recollection is they got paid some more money and went back. But anyway, I did not go back. I guess I was not invited back. Anyway, the thing about the movie is it's directed by Michael Cimino.
He never recovered really either, did he?
He did not. I mean, his breakout success was The Deer Hunter, a Vietnam movie.
Which is also sort of unwatchable now, I'm sorry.
Well, at the time, it was championed as the greatest movie of all time. I suppose because of the timing, it was very raw. The Vietnam War was very raw in the American consciousness. And he came in with this sort of take no prisoners, brutal movie about the Vietnam War, and everybody just loved it. But that went over budget. But when he came to do this Heaven's Gate, he contractually managed to get agreed, written into his contract, that he had the right to go over budget.
Oh,
wow.
In order to make a Christmas Day 1979 release. So the budget was $10 million, which I guess in 1979 was a lot of money.
Sure.
But he already spent $10 million within like 2 days. And the movie actually ended up costing $44 million, which is $145 million today. But when it was released, it was 3 hours and 45 minutes long. It was such a disastrous premiere that they actually canceled the launch of the movie.
who are the stars of the movie?
Well, Chris Christopherson and John Hurt.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. Who is the female lead, though?
I don't know.
It also says Christopher Walken was in it.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Christopher Walken was in it.
And Jeff Bridges.
And Jeff Bridges was in it.
Is the reason why it failed, was it the 3 hours and 45 minutes? Was it all the bad pre-publicity that it got? Or is it just a bad story?
All of the above.
It was just too long. And they re-released a shortened version, which was so shortened. I mean, that's the thing. If you take an enormously long movie and make it super short, it's not going to make any sense anyway.
Yeah.
But they've just recently, like about 4 years ago, re-released a more full-length version. And that's where you can see these opening scenes that I am somewhere in, though I have yet to see myself.
And it became synonymous with the turkey, with box office flop.
Huge failure.
You've released a Heaven's Gate, yeah.
Yeah, I actually told my roommate we were recording this episode, and he was like, "Is Heaven's Gate on there?"
Yeah.
He shot 220 hours of film, and he brought United Artists to its knees. That was the end of it. He did make 4 more movies after that, but they were all sort of non-movies. And he became a recluse. And there was a picture of him about a year before he died with Tom Cruise. Clint Eastwood. And there were rumors that he was transitioning.
I
And
remember that.
They say they aren't true, but he definitely looks like he had facial feminization surgery. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but he looked extremely different. And we don't know why he died. They never released the cause of death. On that sad note, we're going to take a break. This is the WoW Report on Radio Andy, Sirius XM.
You're listening to World of Wonders WoW Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the WoW Report. I'm Fenton Bailey here with James St. James, Blake, and Tom Campbell. And we've been counting down, we've been gnawing on the top 10 turkey movies of all time.
Things you might want to watch over the long Thanksgiving weekend, you know?
So what's our number one?
Well, we feel surely there's so many movie turkeys, we've missed out.
Oh, we have. Should we list a few of them?
Well, you could talk about Catwoman,
Oh, really good. I liked Catwoman.
Bride of Chucky.
Can't Stop the Music.
Love Can't
Gem
Stop
and the
Music.
Holograms.
Love that.
When you talk about number one, I only have one movie in
Mannequin.
mind. No.
From Justin with Kelly.
Close, but no.
Battlefield Earth.
No.
Glenn or Glenda.
No, I'm going to say the movie, and you are going to agree with me. The turkiest movie of all time, that it's so bad, that it's so good, that's defined my life and career.
Number 1.
Mommie Dearest,
Oh, of course.
starring Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford.
Faye Dunaway is Joan Crawford. Yes.
I got to tell you, I didn't see this movie when it first came out in the theaters.
What?
But I saw it on cable, and you could not convince me that it was a bad movie.
No.
I thought it was brilliant.
She is so amazing. She channels her.
Yes.
She is her.
Uh-huh.
The set design, the hair,
The
the
costumes,
makeup.
the lighting, the lines, the dialogue, the script. Every single moment is jam-packed with these luscious little bonbons.
Do you think a day goes by when you don't quote Mommie Dearest in some way?
It is such a part of gay culture at this point. It really is. It for 35 years now, it has been the touchstone of LGBT queer culture.
The thing that sticks in my head is no wire hangers, because it's so right. You should not hang clothes with wire hangers, and I do not at home have any wire hangers. I have those Joy Mangano
Yes.
huggable hangers
From HSN.
Yes.
Tina, bring me the axe. Yes. I might have known you'd know where the boys and the booze was.
Walk me my car, JB? No.
Why did you adopt me?
But it was also, it's interesting because Faye's career never kind of recovered.
She
from
blamed
it,
that
right?
movie, didn't she?
And yet, the reality is she has spent 35 years, talking shit about this movie, saying that it killed her career. But what killed her career was her attitude and the way that she really, she is a harridan. She is a horrible. I'm just sorry. I'm just gonna say it. She's a horrible. She threw a stapler at me once when I was working
Why?
at a bookstore and I didn't have the book she wanted.
I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to throw a stapler at you, James. It's something about you. Look inside yourself for the stapler issue in Faye Dunaway. I hear you, but it's interesting because it came off the best-selling book, Mommie Dearest, written by her daughter Christina, was, in my memory, in the 70s, the first kind of real, like, a child spilling the dirt. Since then, it became almost like,
There's the Betty Davis. There was the Lana
Yes.
Turner's daughter.
Yes, it was definitely seen as a betrayal, right? It just wasn't a cool thing to have
No,
done.
but when the book was first on the talk show circuit, and Phil Donahue and things, everyone was like, "Oh, poor Christina! What a her mother was dead, couldn't speak for herself. What a horrible woman! Oh my God, so much abuse." And then the movie was considered to be a betrayal to Hollywood. That that's what Faye says. That even though Joan had come and gone, that she was part of the Hollywood system.
Oh, and we should have protected our own.
And you don't make fun of Joan Crawford. But I watch it all these years later again and again. And like you're saying about the wire hangers, it's like, I just think Joan was a big disciplinarian. I look at it differently. I don't know.
Joan was a victim of the way she was brought up. Yes, and she came into money too quickly, and she got stardom too quickly, and so she tried to become the person that she wanted to be, and she couldn't be that person. So
powerful single mother.
There's a big dynamic happening there. A big,
wealthy, alcoholism. I mean, this would be, I think, looked at in a different light today. So she's doing the best that she could.
She wanted to be the glamorous Joan Crawford that she portrayed, but she wasn't that person in real life, and it's a real dichotomy.
There's so many sequences that I love, but there's the opening sequence where she's getting out of bed
I love
and getting ready.
that.
With the ice cube.
Yes, plunging your face into a basin of ice cubes.
And she sleeps with her face and chin taped up, so no double chin. And then there's the loyal maid and the Packer or Cadillac or whatever it is, as she runs and sweats before she ends up in her dressing room at the 1939 Ice Capades. It's like, Miss Crawford, they're ready for you. Let's go.
Discipline that she had,
Yes.
that she just willed herself to superstardom and willed herself to stay
Yes.
Joan Crawford.
It's also one of RuPaul's favorite movies, so like every other breath on Drag Race is somehow, channeling Faye Dunaway as Joan Crawford. Let's go. Now, I can't imagine anyone within the sound of our voice has not seen Mommie Dearest, but if you have not seen Mommie Dearest, this Thanksgiving, if you do nothing else, if you do not go home for Thanksgiving, if you don't eat a turkey, please sit down and watch Mommie Dearest. It will change your life.
Can I just add a little bit of movie trivia?
Please.
Christina, played by Diana Scarwood,
Oh?
she plays Michael Ailig's mother in Party Monster.
And we tie it all up with a ribbon and
What
send
else?
you
What else?
off. Yes.
Well, that's all the time we have today. Thanks for tuning into the Wow Report on Radio Andy for Sirius XM. Check out these stories and more on the Wow Report at worldofwonder.net/Radio Andy. Until next time, go out and do something that makes the world go
Wow! And happy
Gobble,
Thanksgiving.
gobble, gobble.
Happy Thanksgiving.